All right. Hello, I'm Jennifer Hoskins, principal at West Elementary. We are doing a training today on preparing for difficult conversations. These are my two, it's not working. Oh. These are my two interns here, principal interns. So they're going to be joining me today. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Heather Prince.
Lori Lewis.
And they're both going to be principals one day. So, this is our training on prepare for difficult conversations. Our agenda today is to just really walk through first an introduction to why we need to address difficult conversations from an HR perspective as an administrator, and then also some strategies that I like to do to get myself ready for having a difficult conversation. And then I have a scenario for us to do towards the end so that they can practice what they would do in that scenario. And then we'll wrap up with a closure at the end. So here we go, preparing for difficult conversations. So this is to help you navigate difficult conversations. As future administrators, it's going to happen. That is one of the biggest parts of my job is to, sorry, I'm trying to make sure the camera's got us. One of the biggest parts of my job is to have difficult conversations with grown people. So it's inevitable. People are not always going to get along. It is not rainbows and butterflies all the time in a school building. So the purpose of this is to give you strategies so that you can mediate conversations between adults. So usually, what makes a conversation difficult for you?
On the difficult conversations, when you know it's something someone's very passionate about, or something that they maybe have a blind spot to, so you know it's going to be a hurdle you have to overcome.
I think difference in personalities.
Mm-hmm. Yep. From this point of view too, sometimes you'll get it where they don't agree with like the feedback that you gave them about a lesson, or their evaluation for the year. Sometimes you have to be the one that says, hey, this awkward thing is happening and we have to change it. And it could be a super awkward topic for some people. A lot of it is emotions, which we'll talk about. A lot of it is emotions. And then a lot of it, especially in like the special education world, it's conflicting viewpoints. Like a parent will want these accommodations or these things for their student, but the school is proposing these things for their student. And as the administrator in that ARD, it's your job to try to get them to be closer aligned and not to overpromise what we can't deliver on. Mm-hmm. Okay, so why do you think we need to address things like that? What if we let it just go?
I've always been a run to the fire person. Otherwise, just like a wildfire, it spreads. So if you let something like that fester, then they lose faith in you as an administrator or a campus, or it just becomes a PR issue eventually and a legal issue.
All of the above, yes. Especially so a lot of it for us too, as administrators, is parent relationships. When you've got an angry parent coming at you, it's not comfortable to be on the receiving end of that. I was just on the receiving end of it this morning on a phone call. But like not helping fix that problem is just going to lead, like what you said, like it's going to fester. That parent's going to get even more angry. They're going to end up at the superintendent's office or blasting us on Facebook. That happens all the time. Here in the school, I think people do lose respect for administrators when bad habits are allowed to just continue. Like, then what do I, person who always does the right thing, why am I pushing myself so hard to do all the right things if that behavior is allowed to continue? So that's
inequality.
Yeah, so I try to always think about that because that was me as a teacher. Like, I'm going to be the one pushing and doing all the new things. I don't even ask why. You tell me that's what we need to do, that's what we're going to do. But then other people that push back on that, it's hard for me to understand why. Okay, so before an initial conversation, I try my best, even with parents, is to like clarify what the objective is for the meeting. especially in hard ARDs that I know we're going into, where parents have already been combative in some way, on a phone call. Hey, I'm here to help you. Tell me what's going on so that I can help find a solution for you. I always let them say their piece. I always try to find as much relevant information to whatever it is. So a lot of times, and it's okay to say this, a lot of times, my answer is, I'm gonna need more time to get with my people, to interview some people, to figure out what's going on, or review policy, you know, and then I will get back with you by this day, by this time, so that they know, like, I have set a timeline for myself. I do always, I almost always will write out what I am going to say if I know that I'm nervous about it. I'll kind of write myself bullet points so that I don't get so nervous that I forget what I'm gonna say. And I do try to work through what they're gonna say back to me, some potential responses, so that I can formulate some ideas, some thoughts. But what I've learned recently, like in the last years, like, you can't really anticipate what they're gonna say. You just have to keep it professional, know that it's okay to say, hey, I need a minute to figure some stuff out. And most of the time, a parent will say, yeah, I can give you some time, and, you know, by what time can I expect it? An appropriate time and place, I always try to do a neutral location if possible. I don't ever pull people into my office, like, for a hard conversation and sit behind my desk and they're on this side of it. And, you know, if I'm gonna have a hard conversation with someone, I'm gonna be right here with you, you know? Like, it's just choosing an appropriate time and a place. I always try to make it convenient for whoever the other person is, even if that means rearranging my schedule to fit their needs. So tone is a big thing. Why do you think tone is such a big deal in a conversation?
Well, personally, I am very direct, and I'm learning that about myself, that I need to keep, because, like, my husband knows exactly how to take my directness and my tone, but somebody that doesn't know me as well doesn't know how to take that tone and directness and just, and so knowing those conversations and knowing that, hey, this person doesn't know my heart, doesn't know my intent, they're taking me at face value, that tone can really shift the way it goes.
I totally agree. I think it's almost that tone sets that theme for how the conversation's gonna go. So if you come out really hot at the gate when they don't understand where the passion comes from, they'll take it as hostility versus, you know, kind of lying down, hey, I'm on your team. How can we solve this together? And so if you start it the right way, it's got a better chance of going the right way.
Right. And it's super important, like this morning's conversation, for example, because it's just fresh on my mind. I'm literally getting yelled at and cussed at in a very unprofessional way on the phone, and I have to keep my calm, I have to keep my composure, I have to keep my tone even though, like, this person is attacking my people, you know, and I believe that my people didn't do anything wrong. That's not why we're there in that conversation, you know? So I always try to be respectful. I always try to be professional. Even with some of our repeat offenders, I try not to hold that against them and give them grace, and just, I'm going to always be professional. I would like you to be professional. I try to stay open-minded because, like you said, I don't know what people are coming to work with or to school with. And I don't know what their past experiences have been, so I just try to keep it calm, keep my composure. I don't ever like to assign blame, and when they are assigning blame to a person, I like to just start with questions, you know, like, well, what specifically happened with that one person? What specifically can I do to help that situation between you and that person? I don't assign blame myself, so. Active listening. It's very hard. It's very hard when they're yelling and they're cussing at you. But you have to hear them out. I always just take notes as they're talking, and I even say that in front of them, like, hey, do you mind if I take notes? I want to make sure I've got all the details together. The mom this morning, I said, I understand that you are frustrated. Those were my words. I understand that you are frustrated. She's cut me off. Do you understand that I'm frustrated? Do you understand why I'm frustrated? So I went back to my notes and I repeated, these are the things that I've written down that you are frustrated about. Paraphrasing works wonders when to give it back to them shows them that you're listening, so that's also another reason why I take notes. I don't ever write my opinions into my notes. It is strictly like what I hear them say. I don't ever say, well, she wants blah, 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 unless that's exactly what she said. You have to maintain the eye contact and the nodding, and even if you can see the red coming up my neck, like, I'm still going to remain professional. I'm still going to keep calm. I might just turn a different shade.
Keep it in.
All right, so communication strategies. What do you think are the best ways to communicate with either someone who has a conflict or someone who is like an angry parent or anything like that?
Like modes of communication?
Or even strategies. What should you do?
I mean, I think listening to them. I think a lot of times they just want to feel heard, listening without interrupting. And of course you said communication strategies. That I think I'm thinking of it differently. I always like my paper trail, like you said, with keeping notes. But yeah, I think a lot of it is just people just want to feel heard, and so just listening.
I think doing that quickly, and then, if you see, hearing their opinion on what would you like to see, how, if once you hear them out, let's make a game plan of what that looks like, and not over-promising, like you said, so having an actual realistic timeline. So when that phone call is done, they know the next steps of action, and that buys you at least time for like 48 hours.
Right.
To make whatever, even if you don't know the plan with the end of the phone call, they know what your next step is, so that way you at least know, I'm going to get a call on Wednesday at this time if I don't do what was promised.
Yep. So keep your communication clear, make sure it's concise, avoid assumptions or generalizations, because again, you could lump them together with this other group, and that's not where they should be. Focus on behaviors rather than personality traits. And then offer your specific examples, how you're going to support your points that you're making.
Do you ever have people just be like, well, that's just my personality?
Like the one that yelled and cussed at me today. That's how she communicates with us every time that she communicates with us.
So then you just have to focus on the behavior that you want to see, I guess. Okay.
Yeah. And like the plan that we made today, I was like, you know what? In the future, I appreciate that you're letting me know that these are issues and that I can help you with. And I told her the plan, and I said, and you can call me anytime. I'm here to help you. And then if you have an issue in the morning, you're welcome to park in our visitor parking. I'm always out front every single morning. Come and find me. Like, I can help you. Yeah. To try to like help her understand, like, I can help you fix your problem before it's this huge big blow up thing. So again, managing emotions.
This is a tough one for me.
Tell me why.
I cry. I'm a crier. And so even if I'm angry, sometimes it comes off as crying. And so I'm really having to work on that. And yeah, I'm just my personality. But yes, I know that about myself, is that I am very emotionally charged person. And it's something that, I have to work on. Okay, I've got to get through this without crying, can't get angry, can't, because this is what I struggle with, openly admitted.
I think I've guilty as charged as well on that one, but also it's interesting because it's like you're teaching the parents as much as you're teaching the students.
Mm-hmm.
And so having to do that in such a way that comes off more colleague to colleague, even though you're acting like the children, but we need to treat it like in a different, it's interesting. That will be something I'm gonna have to like filter through, you know, because I'm like, you're not 5, you're, 35, but that's okay.
It is difficult because not everybody comes to you emotionally regulated. Some of them do have issues that you know they have issues, like mental health issues, and you are still the person that gets to deal with them. That last part there, redirect the conversation back to this one issue, I did have to do that today because she wanted to go back all the way September and rehash every single issue she's had all year that we've already handled, and I've already talked to her about it. Excuse me. And I just had to say, but what specifically happened today? Like, I'm trying to help you with what happened today. A lot of times in difficult ARD meetings that we all go into, and we're all like heightened because we know this parent is combative, this parent's not going to agree with anything, they might bring an advocate who is not professional or kind. I always go into those difficult meetings with a very clear agenda, and I just pull it back to, on the agenda, the next thing to talk about is. And we're blessed in this district, we have an ARD facilitator script, basically. Like, you as the administrator, you have things to say, you have a flow of what the meeting should look like, we set norms. So I think that helps. But as things escalate, you as the administrator get to pull it back in a kind way back to what we're actually here to talk about today. Parents and their emotions will get you going everywhere, and it'll be everything that they've ever had wrong in a schoolhouse. If you're not careful. Don't be afraid that, like, if your emotions start to escalate, like, just take a break. Take a break. You can even ask for a 10-minute recess from an ARD and be like that, legally you're okay to do that. If you see parents escalating, I've had to say, like, okay, we're all getting very emotional right now. Why don't we take a 10-minute break? I'll bring you some water. Staff can walk out of the room for a few minutes. Let's all just take a break and get back to what we're here to do, which is the best for said student. You know? So just trying to, people don't come with emotional regulation. I get accused of not having emotions as much, I guess. And it's not that I don't have them, I can just cut it off.
Yeah.
You compartmentalize it.
Yes. Yes. Very well.
Yeah.
From childhood trauma. But I'm very good at compartmentalizing,
Yes,
and
you
I
are.
may cry afterwards. I might be super angry afterwards, but I can get through the meeting without it affecting me.
Well, it's almost like in a mom perspective, like, you had the worst day, but like, it's 4 o'clock, you're picking up your kids, you're doing what you need to do. We need to get through homework, dinner, everything else. Okay, they're asleep now. I can cry.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I think I'd have to look at it like that.
Yeah.
know?
That's kind of how it goes, especially if it's something really difficult. So I don't take anything at this job personally anymore, because a lot of the things that they're screaming and yelling and cussing at me about, it's not me personally. It's the situation that they were in, their response to that situation. Like, I try really, really hard just to not take that personally, because it does feel like a personal attack a lot of times. But it's not me. I didn't make you angry. All right, common ground. So let's say 2 parties are feuding for whatever reason. What can you do to find common ground?
Well, redirecting for what the goal is, I guess. I know it's shared goals, but realistically, and y'all as an administrator and future administrator, knowing that we're always here for what's best for the kids. It's kind of like when you have parents split households, I'm in that whole situation. Like, if you always bring it back to what's best for the kid, then suddenly like the walls are dropped. It's like, oh wait, it's about them, not about,
Mhm.
you know, what somebody said
Right.
last week.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. And that's a lot of conversations that we go back to, even, you know, as a teacher, like, okay, we're gonna do what's best for this kid
Mm-hmm.
and bring it back to that.
And sometimes there isn't common ground, but you can find a common solution that everybody's at least willing to try.
Like a first step.
Yeah. So sometimes, like, even if they don't think it'll be successful, they're willing to try this one step. And then you then get the task of like making sure that first step is successful so that we can move on to second step kind of thing. You look for compromises. That's why I write a lot even when I'm mediating a conversation, I try to write down each person's perspective so that I can try to identify how to help them get to a compromise, because it's not always easy, and two very different views could be happening, two very different personalities could be happening, but we all still have to work here, and we all still have to do what's best for kids. So like, I try to help them identify what could some things be that we can move forward with. And I always say, we're going to move forward from this.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to move forward from this? Like, it's not my expectation that this keeps going. It is my expectation that we're going to come up with a solution that we're willing to try, and then we're going to move forward. Because some people like to sit and swirl and swirl and swirl, and I'm like, nope, we're getting up out of the swirl and we're moving on.
So that's a lot of that's more of your like departments, like more of an internal or more of the
Yeah, if you had staff members that were not getting along, which always happens every year. I mean, there's 100 staff members here.
Yeah.
Very good chances we're not always going to be on everybody's best friend. A lot of times too, you'll get it where it's like, almost like, well, she's not doing this initiative that the district wants us to do. I'm doing all of it. Like, can you help me get this person on board? So like trying to have that conversation between them, because I don't want to just be the fixer. I want to equip people to be the fixers. So then I would say, yeah, I can have that conversation with you. You know? So that it's not just me coming in and saving the day, you know?
Times 100.
Yeah, times 100 people, yeah. So every time that you have a tough conversation, it's really important to summarize again, these are the things that we agreed to in this meeting. I mean, we just had a parent meeting right before this, and you know, one of the APs was writing down the list of things that we all agreed that we would do to solve this situation. So rereading that to the parent, these are the things that we're agreeing to do. I always also follow up with an email. This is the plan that we put in place today. Because emails are paper trails, you know, like we did meet today, we did all agree to these things. Because chances are it'll come up later and you'll want that paper trail. I always thank people for having the conversation, even if it was a hard conversation, because a lot of times they are just as nervous about having the conversation as I am, you know, especially if they think that I'm going to be the combative one. If you're going to schedule a follow-up meeting, always do it during that meeting. So what I've learned in my years in Hallsville is you can actually like stop an ARD if it's not going well and do a 10-day reschedule.
Mm-hmm.
So you get 10 days to reschedule the ARD. Especially like if the parent's being super combative, not agreeing to anything, like, and you just need time with your team, you can actually like say, okay, we're gonna recess this ARD, we're gonna table it, and we're gonna come back within 10 days and we're gonna try this again. So, not something that I've done ever before until I got to Hallsville, but I have had to do it here. And then you then get the pleasure of monitoring progress and revisiting if anything else comes up, because you're the one that was mediating or helping in the first place. So. I have a hypothetical scenario for you, and then I want you to talk to each other about how would you handle this situation. and I made sure it's totally hypothetical. ChatGPT might have written the scenario for us.
Nice.
So I'll read it out loud just so that
Okay.
the video can hear it as well. So at a prestigious private school, there's a conflict brewing between two senior educators, Ms. Smith and Mr. Johnson. Both have been working at the school for over a decade, and both are highly respected within the community. However, their teaching styles and philosophies on education clash, leading to tension in the workplace. Ms. Smith is a traditionalist. She believes in rigorous discipline and structured lesson plans. She values academic excellence above all else and is known for her strict classroom management techniques. She sees education as a means to prepare students for success in a competitive world. On the other hand, Mr. Johnson is more progressive. He emphasizes creativity, critical thinking, and student-centered learning. He believes in fostering a nurturing environment where students feel empowered to explore their interests and express themselves freely. He thinks education should focus on holistic development rather than just academic achievement. The conflict arises during a faculty meeting when discussing the curriculum for the upcoming year. Ms. Smith argues for maintaining the status quo, advocating for a traditional approach to teaching and learning. She believes that deviating from the established curriculum would compromise academic standards. Mr. Johnson, however, proposes introducing innovative teaching methods and incorporating more project-based learning opportunities into the curriculum. He argues that this approach would be better engagements for the students and prepare them for the challenges of the modern world. As the discussion intensifies, both educators become increasingly entrenched in their positions. In front of the whole staff, by the way. Yeah. Ms. Smith accuses Mr. Johnson of promoting lax standards and undermining the school's reputation for academic excellence. Mr. Johnson fires back, accusing Ms. Smith of being inflexible and resistant to change. The conflict spills over into the faculty lounge, where other teachers are forced to take sides. Some rally behind Ms. Smith, citing her years of experience and dedication to maintaining high standards. Others support Mr. Johnson, praising his innovative teaching methods and commitment to student-centered learning. The school administration is caught in the middle, torn between honoring tradition and embracing progress. They realize that if left unresolved, the conflict between Ms. Smith and Mr. Johnson could have a detrimental impact to the school's culture and reputation. So what would you two do?
So this is, are they still in the middle of it, or is this
I would say
afterwards?
okay, this probably happened at the end of the day. What's your plan for addressing it the following day?
I think like you had mentioned, setting up a time that's convenient for both of them after they've had a chance to kind of calm down a little bit. Let them know you're mediating. I always like to go into a meeting with the agenda, like right here, and the meeting norms, like this is what we're gonna do, this is what we're not gonna do, this is what we're gonna talk about. And then, I mean, get them talking to come up with a solution, because they you know, they've gotta come up with something. I mean, it's gotta be something that they both can buy into.
Mm-hmm.
How do you start the conversation?
I was, so that way I have a fair answer too. My thought initially is they're both, like, with them being adults and professionals, like, I'd probably meet with them both separately for about 10 minutes and be like, hey, at this time today, you know, we're gonna talk about it. This is, like, I appreciate your passion. I, you know, give some compliments before we talk about the elephant in the room situation, but let them know, you know, they were heard. I see your passion, but ultimately for the best of the students, we all have to be able to move forward. And I think rather than be a whole faculty moving forward, let's make sure that we can find that common ground. So at X time today, it'll be all three of us or the admin team, you know, meet with both separately first, so that way they know it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
So that way they might think about how to make better choices, and that we're all on this team together.
Yeah.
You have X amount of time to, you know, think about how we might can move forward for this together, because we all are here for the right reasons. We just need to find what those reasons are and how we put them together.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd probably meet separately for like
I
10
like
minutes,
that. Yeah,
and
I
then
like that.
end of the day or the next, whatever day you can all find
Yeah.
it, hey look, this is happening and this is how we can do it. So that way they know, because you're not in trouble for having strong opinions about education, but we're not gonna let this be a thing forever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I like that too, because then it gives them each the opportunity to feel heard. You know, to feel like, okay, well, that admin gave each person an opportunity to kind of say, this is what I'm coming to the table with. Like, this is why I feel so strongly about this. So I like that. I like the idea of meeting with them separately first.
Let them calm down.
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like if we, and you may disagree, obviously I want to hear your thoughts on it, but if we let them have their moment, individually they're heard, and then I feel like if you just brought them right in, they both know what it's going to come about, and so if they know they're getting met with, they might think they're coming in for an ambush meeting, but it's not. It's, hey, I value you as a professional. This is my goals for the students is A, B, and C. Here's our vision, here's our mission. Let's get back to the curriculum so that we can promote that. And then they know what's coming, so that way they're less guarded, hopefully, for that meeting. I would hope.
So I've done that this year.
Mm-hmm.
Separated and had 2 separate meetings first to hear them out. Took my notes on both. And it actually did help facilitate the talk between the 2 because I knew where each one was coming from. And if that wasn't getting across well to the other person, I was able to say, but you feel that way because, you know, or something like that, and kind of get them truly digging into it. Because I had already heard both sides, you know, and I needed them to hear both sides. Okay, so what do you do after you're meeting with them? What do you say to them? Like, they're here, they know you've had the talk with them separately, they know, and what if they're just sitting there staring at each other? What's the first thing that you say?
I mean, you know, thank you for taking the time to come in and having an open mind. That, you know, again, reassure them, I respect you both as professionals. I'm just here to mediate this. You know, eloquently say I'm not taking sides. It's just, we've got to, you know, come up with a solution.
How can we promote, I would probably pose them with the question of, you know, this is what the meeting was about yesterday, or whatever day, 2 days ago. The goal at the end of our conversations about this is to reach this. So we're getting with that end in mind. What do you guys think might be the first step of finding a common ground, and like, let them find that? Because then it's a challenging question where they have to construct it versus you have to say, well, this is what I want, so how, because then they're just going to give you a cookie cutter answer to get out of the meeting.
True.
So I'd probably just, how do we find that common ground and like let it be? And if they're just staring at each other, then I might say, ask, okay, so what are your main goals with this? And then they say that, and here's how do we, just like with a marriage counselor, like, you know, like how do we, what's the first step that would still keep your beliefs there, but also be able to find that synthesis? And then hopefully that would get a little bit of something.
Okay.
I think definitely making it a non-threatening environment where each party felt comfortable enough to share. I think that's also a big one. I think, you know, so much of what we do is about, I always say it's about people. It's about relationships, it's about people. And, you know, fostering that, so let it, you know, this is a person, this is, you know, and not just looking at it as this is a difficult person, this is a person. Because I know I've been on this side of the hard conversations. And, you know, just being reassured that, I don't know where I'm going, being reassured that it's okay, it's a safe place, we're going to talk about it here, it's going to stay here, and like you said, we're going to leave here. When we leave here, we'll have a plan.
I think the best way to do that, because I agree with you, like, so if they don't feel like they can talk, then they won't. And so I guess showing like, I found value in both of you, I wouldn't have taken the time to have both meetings separately and bring you here so we can move past it.
Right.
So I would probably challenge them like, you know, Mr. Johnson, you know, obviously you saw that I had value in this, or you wouldn't be here. And then same thing with Miss Smith. And so if maybe challenging them, if I saw value in both of these, then I want to see how we can find common ground with both of these. That doesn't mean that only one way is right. It's more of how do we make the best synthesis for the group.
I think I would reassure them, like, each teaching style has value, and neither one is wrong. It's just that they're different, and you're going to be on the same team. So how can we make the team work? Because there's other people that are watching you too, and there may be people that want to blend both. So how do we make that a safe environment where people can give their ideas and suggest how they want to do something? Because ultimately those two are going to affect the team, and that team can affect other teams. Like, it's a ripple effect. And I think, like, I would tell them that. Like, you're both well-respected educators here, and neither one of you is wrong at all. We just have to come together and figure out how are we going to get on the same page, because your team needs you, the school needs you. Like, put that little bit of pressure
Yeah.
because you are two senior educators here.
And maybe, let them know, like, your classrooms are still your classroom. Yours may look more rigid in some of the project-based learning implementation, and his may be a little bit more, loud and buzzing around the room, but they're both valuable for the student, so I'll maybe starting with that first step of, hey, have you considered X, and then get them to talking about it. Oh, look, my life's not over. She's not making me have a whole different discipline
Right.
plan, or whatever the case. Maybe clarifying that it's about the curriculum, not about the day-to-day classroom running.
Yeah.
That might be helpful.
And is there a way, like, and just maybe asking them questions like, is there anything wrong with the way that he does project-based, but you use the textbook? Is there anything wrong with that? No. The kids are still getting the same curriculum. It's just a different experience in the way that they're getting it. So are there ways that we can blend that together? Because some of your team probably wants to do a little bit of both. And so can we plan so that there's a little bit of both in each day, and then if you're not super comfortable with your project-based learning and you are super comfortable, then you have stuff to pull from, and then your team has stuff to pull from. And then your team would know, if I'm interested in learning more about this project-based learning, I would go talk to this person or want to observe this classroom. If I'm not super comfortable and I'm struggling with it, maybe I'm going to talk to her more. But it just, get them on the same page. It is about the curriculum. It's not about them personally. It's not about even classroom management, honestly, because both are probably really good classroom managers. It's just the way in which they manage. And he's going to allow louder voices and movement, where she's going to be a little less willing to do that. So, all right. So then what? While they're talking, what are you doing?
I'm taking notes to help them remember what they said versus, well, she said this. Well, actually, what we all said was, and a lot of the rephrasing, redirecting, staying neutral. Because I mean, if they can see that you're obviously on one side, then we'll probably shut down, and then it would give to probably losing an educator. So I think it would just be a lot of, and then if we, let's say that we had to take a break, it got somewhere, at least we got to air out, but it wasn't quite where we needed to be. If we had to schedule a follow-up of, hey, I've tasked you with these things, we're going to come back, and this is what I asked, three ideas from you, these 3 ideas from you, we're picking, and by this day, this is going to be squashed. So if we needed time, then I would schedule that.
I mean, I think you hit everything, and I agree.
I might also offer them the opportunity to observe each other.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, if you're like, maybe she's just afraid of what that loss of control would be. Maybe he's just like, oh, I think her people are bored, but if he got in there and they're not, like, he could change his perspective from what he saw, and vice versa. So I might offer that too. I don't know that high school teachers would take me up on that. It's easier at the elementary to say, hey, you might want to go look at that classroom over there, but I think I would offer it to them for sure.
Or that whole team, because if it's a team issue, hey, look, we're doing this, it's a case study, I think it'd be great for all of us, like, each one of you pick somebody, and even if they, that may be a good way, or you have to see half of your team, and you just say, hey, obviously I think there's value here, and then pick one other person, and that
Yeah.
way they don't feel like it's just about that, but
Yeah.
then everyone can see the value of both, and then when you meet back with the team, if there's six people on the team, so only four that are besides them and all of them like both, and they might go, oh, maybe
Maybe there's something
maybe
to
I'm
this.
biased,
Yeah. Maybe there's something to this planning for both
Yeah.
and having a little bit of both. Yeah. Okay, so how would you end the meeting?
If we didn't need a recess,
If you didn't need a recess or a reschedule, how would you end it?
I think, once each teacher felt heard, felt like they had said their piece, going back to the notes, developing a plan, communicating that plan.
I think if we had the notes, we know that it's a curriculum issue, right? So if we know that the next meeting for that is at this time, typing it up for all of us, emailing both of them, maybe another AP that helps with those kinds of issues as well, and then that way letting them know that now that we found this common ground, hopefully, that obviously the entire team sees your passion and they know how everything went. So when we come back together, we'll talk about what we found here today. We'll start our meeting with that and then roll on. And that way they know it'll be squashed. We're all in the same spot. We're on the same team. And that way they know what's coming ahead, and thanking them for being open-minded and caring about kids so much. And
Yeah. We're here for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's a great wrap up. And then I always follow up in writing. Here's what we agreed to. So then if somebody is not holding up their end of the deal, tell me why you're not holding up our deal. This is what we came to an agreement on.
Did anything change?
Yeah, why aren't we able to do that? Maybe it's something they just need more assistance on or training on, or it just may be that they're ready to find a seat on another bus. I don't know. So, alright.
Good one.
Feel prepared to take on a difficult conversation. So it's inevitable, especially in the professional world, especially in a schoolhouse. So being prepared, keep a respectful tone, listen actively. You can navigate these and achieve positive outcomes because, again, it's all about kids. And then outside of that, it's about working together as professionals for the betterment of the kids. Because I can't have pockets of negativity in a campus and think that our culture is going to stay high, that it's going to stay positive, that we're going to maintain that growth in that aspect. And then ultimately that affects kids.
No, you're so.
All right. Well, thank you for coming to my professional development today on having difficult conversations.
Yes.
I really appreciate it, and I'm going to turn the camera off now.
Okay.
Oh, wait. There's 2 more minutes. Oh, okay.
Really? Okay.
Okay, so do you want to hear the Chat GPT resolution?
Yes, I do.
Just because I think AI is super interesting right
No,
now.
I do too. I agree.
So the AI says the resolution is to address the conflict. The school admin decides to facilitate a series of mediation sessions between Ms. Smith and Mr. Johnson. With the help of a professional mediator, which by the way we don't have here, you are it. They're encouraged to voice their concerns, listen to each other's perspectives, and find common ground. Through open and respectful dialogue, Ms. Smith and Mr. Johnson begin to understand each other's motivations and priorities. They realize that while they may have different approaches to teaching, their ultimate goal is the same: to provide the best possible education for their students. As they work together to find a compromise, they develop a new curriculum that combines elements of both traditional and progressive teaching methods. This includes maintaining high academic standards while also incorporating more opportunities for hands-on learning and student engagement. In the end, the conflict between Ms. Smith and Mr. Johnson serves as a catalyst for positive change within the school. By embracing diversity of thought and finding common ground, they are able to create a more dynamic and inclusive learning environment for their students.
Wonderful.
Isn't that great from AI?
Yes.
It's like perfect world scenario right there.
Yes.
But I mean, that's basically what we said.
Yeah, that's.
Have the
hit on everything, yeah.
conversations.
Well, I think it'd help your overall morale for that team too. They know that if those two people come at each other's throats,
Mhm.
can do it and see it and feel safe with you to do it, then
Mhm.
they would feel more safe talking about everything. So I think
Yeah.
that's awesome.
think about the impact too, like, they did this publicly in front of the whole staff. So if then they can be seen working together,
Yeah.
like, that's a huge deal for the rest of the staff that witnessed it to begin with.
So would you address anything to the whole staff about witnessing that, or just,
I would think, people are gonna come and ask you about it.
okay,
I would address it as they're asking.
okay.
And then I probably wouldn't do it whole staff.
Mhm.
I might address it with like smaller teams with, hey, remember at faculty meetings, these are our norms.
Yeah.
And this is how you go about solving a problem, you know, those
Yeah.
kinds of things versus the outburst or whatever that happened. I don't think I would just,
Make like a blanket.
I don't do blanket well.
Yeah.
I just don't. I'd rather directly go to the person that's doing the thing
Mhm.
and address the things, because there are plenty of people on our staff that if you say, get off your phone for whatever reason, blah, 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 that are really gonna internalize that and like think that they're in trouble because of the one time that they had to be on their phone for a doctor's appointment for their kid or something like that,
Yes.
when it's not you I'm talking to.
Right.
I'm talking to the person that's on their phone while they've got kids sitting in front of them at the small group table.
Yeah.
You
Don't Candy
know,
Crush.
right? Like, there's a difference.
Mhm.
And I've
Mhm.
I've had someone, like, I'm so sorry, you walked in and I was on the phone, I was scheduling a doctor's appointment with my kid, you know, for my kid, and all this thing. Please calm down.
Uh-huh.
Please calm down. I've never ever seen you on your phone when you have kids in your classroom.
Right.
I know and I trust that you're doing
Right.
what you need to do and that it's not a repetitive problem.
Right.
However, go down the hallway and we have a problem.
Yeah.
So,
I
that's a
like
much
that.
different conversation.
No, and I like that you said about blanket statement.
Maybe more of like a, hey, I love how I've seen our staff come together. That's the blanket statement.
Mhm.
Like a
Yeah.
positive one, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Or, like, if it was something that just wasn't dying down, because usually it does. But if it was something that wasn't, then I might do like a professional development, something on it at our next faculty meeting where everybody's having to do something like this. Let's have a hard conversation.
Yeah.
Let me give you a fake scenario, and what would you do? How would you handle it?
How often do you have to have, or how typically have faculty meetings?
I do them once a month now. Before that, in this district, at my other school that I was at, we had one per semester. But starting a new school, I really felt it was really important for us. A faculty meeting is the only way I can get all of us together. We all have separate conference times and everything, so I felt like it was really important to have one every single month, and we really did focus on relationship building and the culture of our school. Like, I was very, very intentional about planning those out to make sure that as we're building the school, because I took people from 3 different buildings, 2 elementaries and the intermediate came into my building. So there were 3 different cultures going on, and I didn't want any of it. I wanted something new, something different, and so that's why we switched to every single month we have a faculty meeting. So I always try to plan in something fun and something that is of value to them, that, because I don't like wasted time. I don't want my time wasted, so I don't waste theirs. And some kind of team building is always there.
You gonna continue that for the next few years, I think?
Yeah, absolutely, because I think it feeds the positive. You know, like, it uplifts everybody.
Yeah, and if it's a norm, then because if you take it away, then they're gonna be like, well, why do we have them again now? You know. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to sit through a faculty meeting. That could have been an email.
Right, right.
I really do, like, I do not meet just to meet.
No, and I can attest that they are very uplifting. You leave the meetings feeling valued and appreciated. And you know, I always, when you come back from a break, you know, you're on this high and like, I'm ready to do, you know, you kind of have that little in a mini condensed form when you, after a staff meeting. So
Yeah.
they're great. They really are great. So, does that brag on Hoskins?
All right. Thanks for coming to our talk.